Part 60. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 592. Chapter 591. Mother and child are both safe. Sarala, don't take off my socks. Use the mage's hands to bring the two sides together. The healing technique guides the muscles to grow together. Don't be anxious, take your time, let the muscles connect naturally and smoothly, don't leave scars, don't form pimples, otherwise, the mother is likely to bleed heavily the next time she gives birth. Gretel, pale and swaying, stood nearby directing. He couldn't lean on the operating table or hang on Sarala. Of course, he couldn't even think about summoning the dark gold skeleton to support himself or anything like that. There are ordinary people around. It's Aunt Eileen, the mother herself. If the skeleton is released, it will scare them. It would be nice if there was a small stool, the anesthetist's small round stool would be fine. I want to sit for a while. Fortunately, Sarala is reliable enough. While she was throwing away the healing spell, she looked back and saw Gretel looking in a panic, so she compassionately threw out a floating saucer. Gretel let out a long sigh, his feet softened, and he almost fell onto the floating saucer. Sarala, let the floating saucer rise a little so that I can observe. Okay. Hey, you are so lucky to have a teammate who cares about your situation. Greet kept one eye on the situation on Sarah's side and kept giving orders, while the other eye was on the three large pieces of equipment next to him. The electrocardiogram went up and down, the invasive blood pressure monitor went up and down, and only the blood oxygen monitor remained motionless. Don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. The healing skills in Sarah's hands were shining brightly, following Gretel's instructions, layer by layer, layer by layer. For the uterus alone, 4 treatments are required. Walk around to make sure there is no bleeding anywhere. Mucosal layer healing, muscle layer healing, serosal layer healing. Then the peritoneum, anterior rectus sheath, subcutaneous fat, and skin are all carefully aligned layer by layer, and then carefully guided to grow. Gretel was very fast when he cut, and when it came time to suture, healing, it took Sarala a full 10 minutes to heal nearly half of it. Greet, it's so troublesome, does it have to be treated layer by layer? Can't it be cured all at once? Be patient. Gretel stared at the instruments beside the bed, mentally calculating the amount and speed of liquid input, and coaxed Miss Yinlong without looking back. It's convenient for you to pop all of a sudden. In the mother's body, several layers of muscles may stick together. When she gets pregnant again and gives birth again, she will suffer a lot. Won't it grow well? How could it do this if you don't guide it? The muscle only knows that there is a muscle next to me and that we should grow together. It doesn't know if this muscle is the one that was originally cut. Sarala muttered a few words, but finally lowered her head and worked hard. Greet breathed out. Fortunately, there is treatment for this. Once it heals, it will heal. In the previous life, the complications after caesarean section, such as postpartum hemorrhage, infection, pelvic adhesions, intestinal obstruction, and endometriosis, could make life worse than death. So sometimes it's not that the doctor doesn't perform a caesarean section, but that when a natural delivery is possible, the damage to the mother's body caused by a natural delivery is really less than a caesarean section. Sarala, rinse. Rinse. Rinse clean and then sew the next layer. Every corner, especially the incision, must be rinsed. Why? Didn't you rush through it just now? Just now. The shed endometrium may grow in strange places wherever it falls into the abdominal cavity. Then there will be bleeding, inflammation, and pain every month, which is very troublesome. It is better to wash it off now. It's so troublesome. It's not that troublesome. The endometrium is particularly viable, taking root and growing anywhere. Intestine, bladder, abdominal wall, liver. Even the lungs, meninges, and pericardium can be grown for you. Every clinical operation step and every detail requirement are summarized from a large number of cases. If you don't follow these instructions, you will be waiting for the patient to develop all kinds of strange complications. But does this make sense? For example, the probability of a patient developing a certain complication is reduced from 0.13% to 0.05%. Another example is the average time a patient is hospitalized is reduced from 11.4 days to 10.8 days. Of course, every doubling of such a probability in medicine requires the efforts, time, energy, and, of course, huge amounts of money from countless doctors. Another example is now. The blood transfusion can be stopped. Stop the bleeding, pull out the invasive sphygmomanometer, and heal the wound. Don't burn the umbilical cord with fire. Hey, I'll do it, just throw one in to treat minor injuries. Put away the shadowless lamp, stop the tranquility technique, put down the floating dish, put the mother back on the bed. Cleaning technique. Cleaning technique. Newborn score, the skin all over the body is pink, the heartbeat is strong, more than 100 beats/min. The breathing is regular, the muscle tone is normal. Oh, these calves are so strong, crying so loud. 10 points, it's a healthy baby. Congratulations. Both mother and child are safe. The moment I walked out of the delivery room and smiled at the family members, all the hard work, all the fatigue, all the caution, everything paid off. Uncle Karen breathed a sigh of relief, leaned against the wall, and slid down softly. The mother's father and brother supported each other, shaking violently. Brother Raymond let out a cry, then covered his face with his hands, and knelt down. There were also soldiers crowded outside, waiting to donate blood, or who had just donated blood. Everyone showed a relaxed smile. Before, I was knocking on doors and begging for help. I was nervous and anxious, and the situation where life and death depended on a thread seemed like a lifetime ago. Give birth. I was really born safely. It was so dangerous, but the mother and child were safe. There was so much blood. Little Gretel is amazing. What little Gretel? You want to call me Master Mage? Apart from Bernard. Hold him up. He almost fell down just now. Stop. I'm not this tired yet. Gretel bared his teeth and tried his best to resist, but no one listened to him. Everyone, including Uncle Karen and Brother Raymond, just smiled and watched him being picked up by the barbarian, with his limbs hanging down like a kitten being picked up by a mother cat. The culprit, not only did not save him, but also randomly shot spells nearby. Cleaning technique. Cleaning technique. Cleaning technique. Cleaning technique. Sarala, don't use the cleaning technique to peel off my socks. Your cleaning skills are too violent. Even if my shoes are soaked in blood and I want to clean them thoroughly, I don't have to take off my socks. Greet, your whole body stinks. Sarara covered her nose and shouted confidently. No need for cleaning skills, just go swim a few laps in the lake by yourself. Gretel was stunned. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to @Menghui Datong for the 1,500 starting coins reward. Thanks to @Logic Joke for the 100 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Jiolan 2020. Chapter 593. 3 days later. Cars rattling, horses rustling, pedestrians bowing and arrowing. Oh no, spellcasters don't have to use bows and arrows, they have more convenient and more powerful methods. In short, Gretel completed all the tasks in his hometown and set off on his way home with his companions. Little Avril is recovering well. The inner diameter of the left atrium is slightly higher than the normal range, and the end diastolic diameter of the left ventricle has reached the normal value. Brother Raymond's wife is recovering well after giving birth. After a large amount of blood transfusion, there is no intravascular disseminated coagulation. Even in the valley polluted by cadmium, the concentrators, workshops, and pollution control facilities have begun to be built, with priests from the God of Nature supervising them. Everything reassures him. The only regret is that Uncle Karen's family did not return to Nevis with him. Regarding this decision, Uncle Karen once had a long conversation with him alone. The city guard captain said sincerely, "Little Greet, Uncle believes that you are doing good for us. However, Uncle is old and all his acquaintances and relatives are in Heartland City and live comfortably here. Just like many parents who move to big cities with their children, they eventually return to their hometown. Captain Cullen doesn't think he can live a better life in Nevis. As for the children, Edward and David, these two boys, don't have much qualifications. It's okay here, but in a place like Nevis, forget it, it's better not to go." He stroked his beard, shook his head and sighed. Gretel felt sad. Yes, big cities have the scenery of big cities, and small cities also have the comfort of small cities. Edward and David, two young men, do not have the qualifications to cast spells. If they were to learn martial arts, even if they spared no resources to train them, they would only be knights at most. This qualification is like a second-level student who can live a good life in a small city and within his parents' network, but what does this qualification mean when he goes to the capital or a magical city to make a living? Therefore, Gretel did not force himself in the end. He just signed a document and handed over his manor and shop, including the new ones given by the city lord this time, to Uncle Karen for custody. 40% of all proceeds are used for the expenses of the treatment center, 40% are donated to the local God's church, and 20% are used as compensation for Uncle Karen's family to manage these properties. The only ones he took away were a few spellcasters from Heartland City. Pastor Joanna of the Deistic Church, after witnessing the Caesarean section, was determined to learn the relevant techniques. Pastor Christine and Little John from the Ares Temple came over to learn blood transfusion-related spells and battlefield first aid. Pastor Donald from the Spring Temple also received the temple's permission to follow him to continue studying medical skills. Well, he was the first to learn ultrasonic magic in the Spring Water Temple, but so far, he can only kill rabbits. Oh, and Master Elliot, the first mage to lend a helping hand to Gretel after he entered the mage tower, followed him desperately. Master Gearman originally wanted to go together, but he is the host of the Master Tower and cannot leave for no reason. These spellcasters had agreed to study at his Medical Research Institute and Mage Tower in the name of learning healing techniques or magic. It was agreed that after the training period was over, he would return to his hometown and serve in a treatment center for at least 5 years. As for the training period, Gretel provided them with food, shelter, some pocket money, and taught them relevant spells. These spellcasters work in Gretel's hospital or the Mage Tower. What? Remuneration for work? Just kidding, when did you see trainee doctors get the same salary as regular doctors? The procession meandered along the official road. Pastor Donald was still the same temple-style carriage with a black walnut carriage and daffodil patterns. Greet felt it was extremely luxurious when he saw it for the first time. Now, that's it? The two priests from the Temple of the God of War rode together in a spacious carriage, which looked more like a flatbed truck with a hood. Of course, it is very suitable as a carriage for pulling the wounded. As for the natural God Church, if Gretel hadn't returned to Nevis this time and the lord of the city had not sent a carriage, it is estimated that Pastor Joanna would have either walked on 2 legs or summoned a wild horse as a mount. Of course, whether her animal companion is jealous or not is another matter. The two summoned magic horses, side by side, pulled the cart forward. Naturally, it was impossible for the noble silver moon deer to pull the cart with them, carry the barbarians on their backs, and walk beside them alone. From time to time, he would put his head through the car window and snort at Gretel. "Apa, stop making trouble. I'm writing a paper." "Write, write, write, when will you finish writing?" Sirrah rolled on the spacious carriage seat. Resting his chin on his left hand, he was bored. "We are walking so slowly, when can we go back to Nevis?" When they came, the three of them rode together and were carried by Appa at lightning speed. They rode from the mountains to Heartland City in 3 days. When they returned, they brought a lot of people and 3 carriages with them, which they could do in the previous day. "Now I can't finish the journey in 3 days. The key is that the road is so boring. There are no new cases rolling." Greed had no intention of appeasing Miss Silver Dragon. He sat cross-legged in the carriage, using the specially reduced floating saucer, and worked hard on the manuscript. "Being away for more than a month means that I haven't learned new magic or followed up on the latest academic research results for more than a month. If he can't even bring back his thesis and doesn't have any research direction to follow, will the teacher probably beat him to death after he goes back? Some experiences of interventional surgery in the treatment of patent ductus arteriosus. No, this paper is too practical and too theoretical, so the teacher can't pass it. Detoxification, principles and locking methods of cadmium. This paper is too vague in theory, mainly because he cannot directly write the atomic weight of cadmium." When the teacher asked, he could not answer. Surgical indications, preoperative preparation, surgical methods, and postoperative treatment for cesarean section. If you want to write a paper on just one case, you will definitely be turned back by the teacher. What else? What else shows that he has not been idle these days? Correct. "Cyrilla, do you want to go to the top of Igor Peak?" "Yeah." The Silver Dragon girl immediately became excited. After being in Nevis for so long, she has visited the entire city, but she has never been there. Gretel was of low level and could not make the decision on her own, so she did not dare to invite her. She did not dare to break into a place where legends were stationed and there were powerful mythical locks and mage towers. "You're kidding, even an adult dragon wouldn't dare to trespass on Igor Peak. Have you thought of a way? Can you let me go?" Let me think about it. Didn't you say last time that in addition to infrared and ultraviolet rays, you can also feel some other rays?" "I have a senior brother who is working on that subject. I will ask him if he can help you stuff it in." Gretel lowered his head and started writing as fast as he could. "Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of..." As soon as I made the recommendation, my collection started to plummet, which is so disappointing. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 594. So this is what you achieved during this time. Back in Nevis, the Lord of Thunder flipped through the stack of papers handed over by Gretel, and he was indeed not satisfied. There is no theoretical research, no independent thinking, it is all applied things. There are countless magicians studying applied things every day. Why do you need to spend your time on it? As a disciple of my Lord of Thunder, as a magician who stands at the academic forefront of the entire magic world, theoretical research and the essence of spells, these are what you should be concerned about. Only when you understand the principle and why can you make leaps and bounds in magic. Gretel lowered his head and listened to the teacher's criticism without daring to say a word. The Lord of Thunder raised his nose and squinted his eyes, refuting all his papers, then picked up the coffee cup and took a sip, and said slowly, "Okay, then what is your next research goal?" "Teacher, I still have several unanswered questions." Gretel started counting on his fingers. "Research on rabies vaccines has made a lot of progress, but no decisive results have been achieved yet. Research on streptomycin, or other toxins, is still in progress and has produced no results. You should go take a look at the brainwave project that was thrown to the puzzle and control department, there might be surprises. Besides, don't you leave all this to others, the Lord of Thunder frowned slightly and interrupted directly. What are the difficulties? The researchers are disobedient. The project funds are not enough. In short, you should not worry about these. What I am asking is, what will you research next? The teacher is so strict, but behind the strictness, there is also confidence. In the teacher's opinion, if the researcher is disobedient, he can just be kicked out and replaced with a new one. The project funds are not enough and can be obtained anywhere. For high-level mages, there is no need to worry about these bits and pieces. Only topic selection and ideas are the most precious things. Being forced to panic by the teacher, Gretel did not dare to hide it anymore. Some projects that only had ideas and had not been pre-researched had to be dug out quickly and presented with both hands. Indeed, there is. I plan to study identification spells to see if I can identify other information on the basis of blood type identification. For example, blood potassium, blood sodium, blood calcium, blood sugar, pH. Gretel clapped his fingers. Seeing the Lord of Thunder's eyebrows gradually furrowing, he quickly sped up his words. I think that today's identification magic can identify the type and content of certain substances. It must be because the magic sees something. If this principle can be extended to blood tests. He was silenced instantly. The Lord of Thunder raised a finger, interrupted his statement, and said calmly. This can be considered a direction. Regarding the principles and methods of identification, you should read these books and learn a few magic circles. As he said this, he waved his hand casually, and the office was filled with electric light, woven into several lines of writing. Greet quickly took out his notebook, brushed it, and copied hard. The preliminaries of the art of identification, Krent Onegin, 587. Fundamental matter and measurement, Ulan Roko, 1028. Basic identification, Ludwig, 935. Hey, it's great to have a teacher. In the blink of an eye, the book list came down. Of course, the premise is not to. These books can be borrowed from the library of Thunder Tower, and the magic circle can also be redeemed with contribution points. At the next regular meeting, I want to ask you about your progress. No, teacher, Greet screamed at the top of his lungs. There are only 2 days until the next regular meeting. Shouldn't I come to see the teacher as soon as I enter the city? Should I first walk around the mage tower, then walk around the hospital, understand the project progress of all groups, and then warm up my hands for a few surgeries? If we come together in time for the next regular meeting, I won't have to read 4 books in 2 days and learn 3 magic identification circles. What's wrong? The Lord of Thunder glanced over, raised his fingertips slightly, and flipped the pages on the table. Speaking of which, you have been away from Nevis for so long, and these 2 months of journals. Teacher, I will redeem it right away. Next time at the regular meeting, I will make sure there is no problem with the progress. Gretel sprang up like a wounded rabbit and fled toward the door. He opened the door, stepped out with 1 foot, and suddenly turned around. Teacher. What's wrong? Teacher, when I returned to my hometown this time, I found some records related to my life experience. Gretel thought for a while, then returned to the Lord of Thunder honestly and confessed to the teacher. My father seems to be a son of a noble from the mainland. His hometown is in the Kingdom of Rhine. The Ascan family started in the northern border of the Kingdom of Rhine, which is the Nordmark you mentioned. The Lord of Thunder interrupted him directly. The current Earl of the Border, William Ascan, nicknamed White Wolf, is 95 years old this year and is a 15th level Sky Knight. His younger brother, Big Bear Albry, has a young son born to his mistress and eloped with someone more than 20 years ago. Missing. Do you think I didn't check anything before I accepted you as my disciple? Gretel was stunned. So, I am the grandnephew of the Earl of the Rhine Kingdom? Do you all know this? No better than myself? The Parliament has sent people to investigate your origins and previous experiences. Seeing his stupid look, the Lord of Thunder became more and more impatient. Your experience and character are not likely to be influenced by the opponent and turn to the opponent. Otherwise, let alone accepting you as a disciple, even the Mage Tower will not be built for you. Okay, is there anything else? Well, teacher, my maternal bloodline seems to be that of elves. Oh. The Lord of Thunder responded lightly, not looking surprised. Gretel was stunned instead. No, it's not right. Teacher, you also know this. I only found out when I went back and dug out the letters. And I look completely human, not like an elf at all. It seems like no one can see the spell that hides your appearance. Oh, I forgot, you really can't see it? Although I haven't unlocked it, I should have known that you have non-human blood. Gretel, T. He had no choice but to take out his mother's letter, including the pendant, and held it over voluntarily. The Lord of Thunder read the letter at a glance, then took the pendant in his hand, shook it casually, and threw it back. You're so petty. Isn't it just the route to Elf Island? It's not like there is no parliament. It's just on the other side of the New World. Greet, if you are interested, I will give you the route map now. Greet stood there holding the letter and pendant. He is interested in walking around the world and seeing different scenery, but that doesn't mean he has to go out now. A young mage who is only at level 6 is expected to cross the ocean, then cross the New World, and run to the Elf Island alone? You can't fight, you can't escape, you will die on the way. Oh, right. The Lord of Thunder raised his eyes slightly, and his cold, lightning-like gaze quickly turned on Gretel's face. Humans with elven blood will be easier to sense magical power and nature. In this case, your learning progress. Teacher, I will go back and read immediately. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 595. Greet was dizzy from chewing on the reference book, and was dizzy when learning the magic circle. For 2 days, with eyes open and closed, eating and drinking, I was dealing with a lot of theoretical knowledge, strange symbols, and strange formulas. The essence of identification is to understand the reality of matter. To understand matter, we must start from understanding its properties. To understand matter, you can learn from the following aspects. As a spell, the function of appraisal is to summarize and interpret the information obtained by the spell. The 2 days of retreat were not without results. The good news is that information such as specific gravity, pH, and identification techniques have ready-made magic circles that can be displayed by just putting a drop of blood into them, without having to use new magic. The bad news is that because the elements potassium, calcium, and sodium have just been discovered by the magic world as elements, there is no ready-made magic available. Of course, there are also blood sugar, blood lipids, uric acid, creatinine, and endless substances that need to be tested. Gretel couldn't find the tools, so he had to roll up his sleeves and figure it out on his own. So, what is your chosen research direction? 2 days flew by. At the regular meeting, the Lord of Thunder inspected Gretel's learning progress alone and reluctantly expressed satisfaction. Before Greet could put his heart back into his stomach, the teacher asked him. After reading so many books, do you have any ideas? Some. Greet opened the notebook. On the latest page, there was a line of text that he heavily circled in red. So far, most of the information obtained by the identification technique has not been analyzed with certainty. In addition, as a magic, there is no conclusion about the principle of the identification technique and why it can get feedback. Combining the results of the previous spin-off distinguished bloodline, Gretel has reason to guess. Identification, or at least identifying bloodline, is to use magic rays, a certain kind, or certain types of waves, to illuminate the blood, and then interpret it based on the results obtained after the blood absorbs this ray. Why does it feel like a liquid chromatograph? So, the next research direction is to determine the nature of the magic used to identify bloodline. At present, I guess it is a kind of ray, or a kind of light, Greet talked eloquently. The second is to determine the feedback it receives and the meaning of each individual piece of information. It sounds like you've used your brain. The Lord of Thunder nodded noncommittally. For the second direction, you have already accumulated experience before, just keep doing it. For the first direction. He turned his eyes and glanced to the left. Belbo has quite a lot of experience in researching Yanjian burst, and is breaking down the components of sunlight. Go and discuss with him, maybe you can get some ideas. Yes, teacher. The first one on the left, the tall and sturdy magician, bowed respectfully. Little Greet's previous paper, which proved infrared and ultraviolet rays, greatly inspired my Yanjian burst. Recently, I discovered that there seems to be something else in the sun, but I can't be sure. Maybe, this is what little Greet is looking for. Helper from heaven. After the group meeting, Greet happily followed Brother Baebo down to the 375th floor of the Tower of Babel, Laboratory 8. As soon as you enter the door, someone will bring you a cup of ice cream, and the white mist will appear like a dream. It's still liquid nitrogen ice cream, yes, it's the result of the cryogenic materials team of the magician who swallowed a cup of liquid nitrogen last time. By the way, why do these magicians have no creativity when it comes to molecular cuisine? After all, Gretel was holding the ice cream and eating it happily. While eating, I looked at the results of my senior brother. Well, the wavelength of infrared rays has determined the properties of far infrared rays and is heading towards mid-infrared rays. Ultraviolet rays, UVA, low-frequency long wave, and UV, low-frequency medium wave, have been identified, UV has been inferred, and we are moving towards ultra-high-frequency ultraviolet rays. As for other things, senior brother, Cyrilla may be able to help you with what you want to study. A subtle smile instantly appeared on Baebo's face. A big, generous hand slapped Greet heavily on the shoulder, almost knocking him down. Little Gretel, that's good. Among our senior brothers, you are the youngest, but you are the most beautiful in this area. But senior brother has a suggestion for you, keep the girl by your side, don't always think about pushing her, go outside. Brother! Greet exclaimed angrily, rubbing her shoulders. Alas, what does a mage have to do with such strong muscles? Is it used to clean flasks? You don't have to be so vigorous when brushing flasks. After Greet picked up half a cup of ice cream and threatened to pour it on the paper, Verbo finally raised his hands in surrender. The two brothers laughed, and Gretel straightened his expression and whispered. Senior brother, you know, Cyrilla is a silver dragon. Yeah, Master Baebo gave him an urging look. It's just a silver dragon. The teacher had already whispered it, warning us not to mess with her, let alone touch her. Then what? She said she can see some things that humans can't see. Especially in sunlight, in addition to infrared and ultraviolet rays, she can feel some other rays. Do you want her to participate in the research team? The remuneration will be discussed separately. You have to let her, she has the right to be on the summit. Yeah. Master Baebo's eyes immediately lit up. One of the most troublesome problems his research group currently faces is that those rays can sometimes be felt and sometimes not. Is the instrument inaccurate? Or is the student guarding the equipment taking a nap? Or is it the kind of light in the sun that comes and goes? None of this is conclusive. It would be great if someone, oh, A dragon could feel it directly. Relatively speaking, letting her go to the top is not a problem. I'll write the report. I'll apply for permission. Don't worry, if she doesn't want to expose her identity, I'll apply for a separate room for her. The next day, Sarah, led by Greet, took a small train to the top of the mountain. Hang up the badge applied for by Master Baebo, and enter the laboratory with swagger. Well, you can indeed see different things standing in front of the instrument. Sarah's silver blue eyes silently turned into vertical pupils. But there are so few. Gretel, I can't see clearly like this. Then how do you see best? Of course it has turned into its original form. Cyrilla lazily stretched her waist. We don't just observe the world with our eyes. If there is a place where the sun can shine directly on the scales, then we can feel it most clearly. So I'm going to apply to the School of Prophecy. Archmage Baebo felt like he had been hit on the head. Well, on the top of the Babel Tower, under the huge magic circle of the Star Dome, there is a silver dragon lying down. The picture is very beautiful when you think about it, but do you want to move all my instruments to the top of the tower? Will the prophecy school beat me to death? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 596. Finding different rays in sunlight and proving the existence of such rays does not happen overnight. Of course, this is not a problem for Cyrilla. Where to sleep is not sleeping. When you sleep in the Star Dome, you can change back to your original shape, and you can also lie down on the clean, flat marble floor and bask in the sun. There is also a magic circle that gathers the sun's rays and basks in the warmth on the body, which also improves the efficiency of absorbing energy, increases strength, and kills two birds with one stone. Just remember to open your eyes occasionally and tell them I found a different light, which direction, and that's it. There are also people who bring the food to your mouth. You can order all you want to eat, and there are people who help brush the scales, and by the way, there is money. You can put the gold coins under your belly and sleep under your body. On the first day, it was Greed who urged her to get up and send her to work. Starting from the next day, she automatically got up and caught the train without anyone urging her. On the third day, before the sun came up, I went to catch the first train. Gretel settled down with Cyrilla and plunged into her own research. Learn about the progress of the Mage Tower, hospital, and partner locations one by one. Mr. Norwood, how are you doing here? The silent middle-aged mage emerged from the laboratory. Without waiting for Greet to ask a second question, he dragged a bunch of the boss's experimental results and put them in front of Greet. It's done. Mr. Nordmark, we finally made it. On the floating dish, there are all kinds of rubber skins, rubber tubes, rubber blocks, and rubber sheets. Gretel casually picked up a rubber tube as thick as a little finger and pulled it slightly in his hand. The rubber tube was stretched easily. Although the softness and uniformity were not as good as his previous life, it felt that it was suitable for use. The elasticity is very good. How about the heat resistance? Will it be denatured after being steamed in high-pressure water vapor at 120 degrees for half an hour? No, no. Mr. Norwood patted his chest and took out a pile of test materials to prove the truth of his words. These requirements were all mentioned by Greet when he placed the order. The boss has specified it, and it must be tested. In addition to heat resistance, there are also various indicators such as acid resistance, alkali resistance, oil resistance, wear resistance, etc., each of which has been tested in detail. Well, it looks pretty good. Greet flipped through the information and expressed satisfaction. He grabbed another piece of rubber and concentrated slightly. Under the influence of mental force, the rubber flows, deforms, and solidifies. From the fingertips to the wrist, a thin layer is attached, turning into a translucent rubber glove. Finally got some gloves to use. Happy. Gretel raised his palm, turned it over, and turned it over again. After looking up, down, left and right, he looked carefully and asked Master Norwood, "If it were you, how much would you pay for a pair of gloves like this?" "At least 1 silver coin." Master Norwood blurted out without thinking. Looking at Gretel's gloves, his eyes lit up, and he almost went up to grab it. "I often walk by the river, and my shoes don't get wet. When doing experiments in the laboratory, those acids, alkalis, and all kinds of weird magic potions will always get on my hands. With these gloves, at least half of the damage from magic potions can be blocked. What is a silver coin? Not to mention, the gloves bought with 1 silver coin are not meant to be used only once. It can be used again after being washed. Even if there is a hole, it can be repaired by using the transformation spell to shape it. What about the cost? For 1 silver coin per pair, do we make a profit? At least 70% of the profit." Master Norwood counted his fingers happily. "Mr. Nordmark, the cost price of raw rubber products you can buy is..." "Stop. Just make money. As for the specific costs, benefits, profit margins, and total annual profits, Greet is not very concerned about these things. He directly wrote a letter, attached the finished product and instructions, and asked someone to send it to the Alchemy Guild. Come, we have new products here, let's talk business." That afternoon, the fat old man, the vice president of the Alchemy Guild, walked straight to the door. "Nordmark Mage, do you have new products for your Mage Tower?" "Not only a new product, but a new product series." With a smile on his face, Gretel went into battle himself and demonstrated various uses to him. "Look, if you make a round tube like this, hollow, and fill it with air, you can make it into a car tire. It is used to absorb shock, and the effect is very good. Made into thicker pipes, it is very convenient for water supply and pumping. I believe that the Navy in the Parliament will like this kind of rubber pipe very much. It is much more convenient than the leather pipe they use. It is processed into a thin skin and attached directly to the outside of the wires. It has a very good insulation effect and is much more convenient than patent leather. How many motors does your workshop sell per year now? How many wires are needed? Processed into a stopper, with a thin layer of skin on the outside, it can be turned down to cover the mouth of a glass bottle. It is much easier to use as a stopper than cork, and it can effectively prevent air leakage. Magicians and pharmacists who need this, I believe there will be a lot. Rubber tubes with needles are the most convenient for blood transfusions. Most of the healers in the army are Aries priests. They won't cause vines to grow, right? I don't need to talk about gloves. I believe that every mage, and even every mage apprentice, will need a pair as long as they do experiments with their own hands. In fact, I suggest that they become standard equipment in the laboratory. It can also be made into raincoats and rubber shoes, which are extremely waterproof and can greatly enhance mobility in rainy days. Gretel kept talking, while the assistant brought by the old man buried his head in writing notes. How did this Nordmark mage do it? He could come up with so many uses for things as soon as they came out. Hey, stop saying a few words. The more products you propose, the more licensing fees we have to pay. Selling raw materials and selling mature products have different profits. The old man himself, while flipping through the test forms, oozed mental energy to feel the rubber skins, rubber blocks, and rubber tubes. Well, it has good elasticity, good ductility, wear resistance, and heat resistance. By adding different materials and processing them in different ways, you will get a variety of products. This kind of thing has great potential. Alas, their own magician clearly saw the rubber, so why didn't he study it in depth? It's not easy to use as a sealing gasket for a steam engine, but it can be used for something else. We want the authorization for this product, and the authorization for all subsequent research and development based on it. Master Nordmark, can you give us a price regarding the authorization conditions? Greet laughed happily. Authorization must be granted. Just because the old man helped him solve the problem of the golden box last time and didn't let him continue to burn chips, Greet owed him a big favor. There is no need to cut the price too hard. The alchemy workshop has its own rules, and everyone has always cooperated well, so he will not be treated badly. It is necessary to ensure the supply of products. After all, hospitals have almost endless demand for rubber blood transfusion tubes, rubber tourniquets, rubber gloves, rubber bottle stoppers and the like. The first payment of 1,000 gold coins, etc., will be credited to your account immediately. Even if 500 gold coins are given to Master Norwood, the remaining 500 gold coins are enough to give pocket money to the spellcasters brought by Gretel. 1 year is enough. And then, more importantly, remember to show me the new stuff you come up with. Maybe I can give you some advice or help you sell it or something. No problem. Greet soon regretted it. After signing the contract, the first new product delivered to him was a palm-sized, cylindrical, open-end, thin to translucent rubber bag. I said, why should you use your creativity in this direction first? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 597. Chapter 596 Rabies Vaccine. Can I still use spells to cheat? Of course, the existence of certain special protective equipment is also meaningful and very meaningful in preventing the spread of diseases. Moreover, protective equipment made of rubber, compared with its predecessors, those made of animal bladders, animal intestines, fish maws, lambskin, and linen are superior in terms of convenience, safety, reliability, and even price. There are unparalleled advantages. So, Greet still held his nose and gave some suggestions based on the position of a doctor. For example, making it into different sizes, such as making a small pocket on the top, such as promoting it in bars, certain special places, and among sailors. If finance allows, the Navy can also purchase them uniformly and then issue them to sailors on board for use. Ahem. However, Greet is limited to providing advice on these matters. What he really tried to implement was to order a large batch of rubber gloves, distribute them to the hospital's healers and students, and order them to. When you are working, when you are in contact with test objects, when you are in contact with patients, you must wear gloves. If I see anyone not wearing gloves, I will tell him to get out. The healers and students cheered. Those dogs, rabbits, and dirty patients, who wants to touch them directly with their hands? Good luck, hair on one hand, bad luck, blood on the other hand, or even something unspeakable on the other hand. The boss is such a good person. Provides what we need most. Don't just shout long live the boss. How are you doing on your project? We have made significant progress. The necromancers moved out of the way and guided Gretel to the back building. In the innermost storage room, the magic circle is constantly working to ensure that the environment in the storage room is stable and consistent. Constant temperature, constant humidity, ventilation, anti-rat and insect proof, and prevent everything that should not appear in the storage room. In a small room of 10 square meters, this magic circle will burn 10 gold coins every day it works. In the words of the necromancers, this thing is more valuable than us. If it weren't for maintaining storage conditions, we ourselves wouldn't be worthy of opening this. In the storage room, gray-white rabbit spinal cords hang like New Year's bacon. Under each article, there is a handwritten label. On what month and day did the storage begin, which rabbit it was taken from, how many times this rabbit has been passed down. As the leader of the necromancers, Leon Carlos carefully read the label and removed a rabbit's spinal cord that had been passed down 50 times and dried naturally for a week. Sir, the rabbit spinal cord treated in this way can be used to resist rabies toxin. Gretel's eyes lit up. Rabies vaccine is a milestone in attenuated vaccines. Having done this proves that the idea of attenuated vaccines is effective. In the future, many vaccines can go in this direction. Cholera vaccines, plague vaccines, even Japanese encephalitis vaccines, and polio vaccines, for God's mercy, he hasn't isolated the virus yet, all can be developed. Many times, the only difference between the magicians in this world is one idea. Come, let's do verification experiments together. Yes. The students answered neatly. The boss wants to verify, and the students are naturally duty-bound. 5 small sections of the rabbit's spinal cord were cut off, and 4 magicians headed by Leon Carlos, together with Gretel, started experiments independently. Relatively speaking, Greet is the slowest one. He did not have much involvement in the research and development of rabies vaccines. He only gave directions and guided these necromancers to do it. Naturally, what about injecting rabbits, dissecting rabbits, hanging and drying rabbit spinal cord? He did it the least often and was the least skilled in his movements. Instead, the necromancers chopped the rabbit's spinal cord into pieces, ground it into an emulsion, diluted it with saline, and then injected it into the rabbit, all in one smooth motion. All right. Catch a rabid dog. Take its spit. Skeleton 1, enter. There were demons dancing in the backyard. The backyard is no better than the front yard, and there is no need to pretend to face the patient. The young necromancers did not even open the appearance of the skeleton. After giving the order, the whole courtyard was filled with skeleton soldiers running around. A skeleton soldier opened the cage where the rabid dog was kept, bent down, stretched out his bone hand, and grabbed the rabid dog. Another skeleton soldier opened its mouth, not caring that its bone hand was crunching loudly, and pieces of bone stubble flew out. The third skeleton soldier raised the beaker, brought it to its mouth, and drank half the cup of saliva in one breath. Several necromancers commanded the skeletons to work at the same time, with smooth coordination and extremely high efficiency. Gretel blinked, and the saliva from the rabid dog had been extracted. The dog with red eyes was thrown back into the iron cage and locked with a click. Magic is all about convenience. Gretel sighed silently. I remember when Pasteur took the saliva from a rabid dog, he knelt at the rabid dog's feet and waited patiently. I don't know how long he waited. Don't rush, don't rush. Get in line, grab the syringe, and take turns sucking the saliva. Inject the rabbit. In order to ensure the effect of the experiment, and to ensure that the mages do not interfere with each other, the laboratory in the backyard is guaranteed to have 1 room per person. Greet divided his rabbits into 2 groups, one group was only injected with vaccine, and the other group was also injected with rabies saliva. Then, he went out for a half-day consultation and came back to experience. Tisk, it doesn't seem to be of any use. It feels like there's something wrong with the rabbit. On the first day, when animal affinity was turned on, I felt that something was wrong with both groups of rabbits. The next day, without turning on animal friendly, you can see with the naked eye that something is wrong with the rabbit. On the third day, both groups of rabbits showed obvious symptoms of rabies, fear of water, fear of wind, and convulsions. However, the other students' rabbits were safe and sound. Gretel waited 1 day, and another day, and 7 days passed. The students' rabbits showed no signs of being infected with rabies. The blood and saliva of these rabbits were then injected into other healthy rabbits. The healthy rabbits were still alive and kicking without any signs of infection. So with the same vaccine, Why didn't your rabbits have any problems? Gretel looked at the necromancers suspiciously. Is it a dosage issue? Or are you doing something special with the vaccine? Four necromancers, look at me and I look at you. Finally, it was Leon Carlos who raised a hand. Sir, what we are dealing with is not a vaccine, but a rabbit. Before injecting rabies saliva, or during the injection, blessing the rabbit with steel patience can enhance its ability to resist toxins. Patience of Steel, a first-level spell of protection. Improves the ability of exposed organisms to resist toxins. A large number of spell experiments have proven that the spell itself cannot make rabbits resistant to rabies toxin, however, after being injected with the vaccine, they can effectively resist. So without magic enhancement, the rabies vaccine is not safe enough. Our goal is that the vaccine can also work without the help of magic. Keep researching. Yes, sir. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Giolan 2020. Chapter 598. The results were rejected by the boss, but the young necromancers were not depressed. Or rather, Leon Carlos inspired them well. At least we are on the right track. If 50 passages are not enough, then 60, 70, 80, or even 100 times. Natural drying for 1 week is not enough, so 8 days, 9 days, or even 14 days. He jumped onto the chair, looked down at his companions, and waved his fist. It's nothing more than a waste of manpower and time. This project is personally concerned about by His Excellency the Immortal. His voice suddenly rose, and he began to draw a picture for everyone. After it's finished, I can publish a big article. Then everyone will be guaranteed to make a second game. Work harder. Ouch. The necromancers were so excited that they rushed into the laboratory, rolled up their sleeves and went to work. When the paper that Your Excellency the Immortal is personally concerned about is finished, it may be published in Arcane or Magic. At the level of a first-level or second-level magician, there can be a second work of Arcane or Magic. Even if it's a tie-in game by many people, it's not difficult to join the research group of a level 10 or above Archmage. Gretel smiled and drifted away. He left the backyard, walked into the front clinic building, and found Joanna. How's your memorization of the book? So hard. Joanna lay weakly on the table. The 3 red marks on the cheeks seemed to have lost their vivid and mysterious color, and they lie dimly and feebly. Why do you have to memorize so many books? What she memorized was a textbook specially compiled by Greet. Histology, physiology, local analysis, system analysis, internal medicine, surgery, obstetrics and gynecology. Wait, etc. The relevant content has been simplified, and it has been compiled into a book. In Gretel's opinion, it wasn't much. After all, the above-mentioned books add up to several thousand pages. The part he organized was not even 1/10. But that doesn't seem to be the case for Joanna. Printed text becomes handwritten, the paper area doubles, and the content is folded in half. The book that Gretel gave her was placed on the table, with the lower edge at the same level as her elbow, and the upper edge at the same level as her chest. Did you say you were here to learn about cesarean section? Why do you have to memorize so much irrelevant content? If she can't finish reciting, she is not allowed to start, and she is not allowed to come into contact with the mother. The speed with which she endorsed the manuscript was not as fast as Greet's writing the manuscript and then handing it over to her. Moreover, you have to work during the day, and you can only memorize it between medical appointments or at night. You also have to make sure you have time for meditation and sleep. How can you memorize so much? You haven't finished memorizing it yet? Then work harder. Gretel stood up, turned 180 degrees, and walked towards the door of the consulting room. If you can't finish memorizing it, just keep memorizing it. Medical students, doctors, who didn't come here like this. Seeing patients and performing surgeries during the day, filling out medical records at night, and working night shifts. While doing all kinds of things, I also have to do research, write papers, and follow the latest academic research. Daily working hours are conservatively estimated to be 16 hours. Moreover, it is a lifelong learning major. Life has its limits, but learning has no limits. No. Give me 3 more days, 3 more days. In 3 days, I will finish memorizing it. Yo, it's so fast. Gretel paused. I'll give you a week. There will be an exam in a week. A paper with a score of 100 and a score below 90 will go back and forth from wherever you go. Yes. Joanna tearfully agreed. Greet scratched his ears and began to worry about the next question. Where do the patients come from? It's stupid to spend so much effort to train only 1 or 2 priests. Greet's ambition is to expand gradually in batches. The first step is to train 10 midwives to teach them the correct delivery techniques, what situations cannot be handled and require cesarean section, and how to guide mothers to transfer to another hospital. The second step is to expand the training scope to 100 midwives, or even the entire Nevis. The third step is to establish obstetrics and gynecology hospitals, guide mothers to give birth in hospitals as much as possible, and reduce maternal mortality as much as possible. How to make those midwives obey? How can pregnant women be willing to come here to give birth? In the worst case scenario, if someone dies, what will happen? Also, where do the costs for investment and operation of obstetrics and gynecology hospitals come from? All of this must be thought of in advance. Use administrative power when it is time to use administrative power. Well, the most important power in Neva City is the Magic Council, the nobles, and wealthy businessmen. The Evocation Department will definitely support him, as will the Necromancy Department. The Alchemy Workshop has a good relationship with him, the Charm Control Department. Gretel climbed Eagle Peak and headed straight for the Tower of Song. To use favors, you have to build a good relationship on a daily basis. Since he has a cooperation project with the control system, he should check in every now and then to see how the progress is. MRS Alva, did you get any new results from that EEG project? MRS Alva entertained him with great pleasure. Mr. Viper has been tortured to the point of being handed over to the Necromancer Department, but there is never a shortage of subjects in the Tower of Song. Yes. Very interesting results. We compared a series of basic spells of the control system based on mechanical mind, and made a great discovery. MRS Alva nodded at the crystal ball with a smile. The crystal ball has obviously been specially processed and can present images of various parts of the brain in a 3-dimensional and translucent manner. You see, in the state of mechanized mind, we use blue to represent the excitement of various parts. Then, cancel the spell and let the subject accept the influence of different magics. The crystal ball is colorful and constantly shining, like a neon light stuck in the shape of a brain. MRS Alva was sitting on the sofa next to her, stirring a cup of hot cocoa with cinnamon powder, and kept giving instructions. This is charming humans, this is hypnosis, this is anxiety technique, this is assistance technique, this is steady confidence. Red, yellow, orange, or blue and green, which represent calm, keep lighting up and dimming. Gretel muttered silently in his heart. The frontal lobe of the brain, the temporal lobe, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, the pineal gland. After brainwave monitoring, it was found that different magic control spells can excite different parts of the brain, and sometimes inhibit other parts. And the essence of enchantment control magic is to use different types of waves to affect different parts of the brain and interfere with its activities. By the way, we cooperated with the necromancy system and made a particularly interesting discovery. After the spell of the control system took effect, we detected some fluctuations in the content of some things in the blood of the recipient. What? Gretel jumped up. Have you discovered hormones? Can your technology detect trace amounts of hormones in the blood? Please teach me immediately. Just let me kneel down and hug my thighs. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to @Yalianks for the 1,500 starting coins reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 599. Chapter 598 Gretel Hart Dr. Nordmark. The work of testing the subject's blood is done by Black Crow Swamp. There is no detection method for the confusion control department, and hugging the thigh is useless. Gretel didn't care. Anyway, if you want to obtain it from Black Crow Swamp, or exchange it for a detection method, the difficulty is close to zero. He sat on the soft sofa and continued to listen to Ms. Alva sharing her research results. Since spells can make people have more things in their bodies, then maybe extracting these things and injecting them into the human body can achieve effects similar to spells. We are unlocking the mysteries of spells. Greet knew that this was indeed possible. For example, adrenaline can make people's heart beat faster, breathing speed up, pupils dilate, and they ignore certain pains, achieving effects similar to inspiration technique. For example, oxytocin makes people soothed, calm, cheerful, and prone to empathy. To a certain extent, this is similar to charming humans. Also, he has reason to believe that dopamine and endorphins are related to spells such as joy spell and joy capture. He greatly appreciated Ms. Alva's thinking. At the same time, I also kindly shared some opinions. The trace amounts of hormones produced after the magic control spells or similar magical spells take effect may not be secreted by the brain. Of course Gretel knew that, for example, the pituitary gland was stimulated by magic, to secrete adrenocorticotropic hormone. After this hormone reaches the adrenal glands, it promotes the secretion of adrenocortical hormone, and the latter is more abundant and easier to detect. Of course, you can't say this to people casually. No experiments have been done, adrenocorticotropic hormone has not been found, and the linkage between the two hormones has not been found. Saying it rashly will only be counterproductive. Besides, what if the human body in this world works differently? Greet can only give examples. I once treated a young patient who had laryngeal edema after eating seafood. I gave him a small piece of the gland above the sheep kidney. For the same symptoms, the god of war used the encouragement technique and achieved the same effect. Oh, Ms. Alva paid special attention to it and quickly recorded. This discovery is so important. It will save us a lot of detours. This exchange was extremely pleasant. After sharing all the recent results, Ms. Alva remembered her plan to build a famous doctor and started to complain about Gretel with a half smile. You've been gone for a month or two, and you haven't received any patients or performed any operations. We originally wanted to make you famous, but we just started to get started, and now it's stopped. Do you still want me to perform an operation on the son of the Lord across the sea? By the way, how many points of reputation should I get? Are there any clear mission requirements? Gretel's thoughts wandered silently for a moment. He then smiled and raised his hand. I'm here to see you. This time when I return to my hometown, I have a very important operation to perform. Look, I've already written the thesis. As he spoke, he took out the paper from his space bag and pushed it forward slightly. Ms. Alva quickly tapped the table, and the area of the round table suddenly expanded, spreading to both sides like butterfly wings. The teacups, cinnamon cans, sugar bowls, and snack towers were all moved aside along with the tabletop, leaving a grand avenue for the paper. She took the paper and turned 2 pages before her eyes lit up. Some experiences of interventional surgery in the treatment of patent ductus arteriosus. Is this the treatment of congenital heart disease? Master Nordmark, the significance of this paper is simply epoch-making. Leave it to me, I will definitely publish it this month. Mrs. Alva means what she says. That month, Ordinary Magicians Monthly published Gretel's paper, and on the cover of the magazine, a beating heart was printed directly with a scalpel inserted on it. Next to the heart is an extremely sensational title that the editor of the journal changed for greed. Pushing the Forbidden Zone in the Heart. The journal editor wrote enthusiastically in the introduction. Heart disease, especially congenital heart disease, has always been a difficulty in treatment. It's not that no one has tried it, but the way treatment works, generally speaking, is to guide the human body to return to its original state. Somewhat. Those who are injured should recover to the state before the injury, those who are sick should recover to the state before the illness. However, congenital diseases are what they should be, and that is the form they currently exist in. Low-level and mid-level healing techniques are almost ineffective against it. As for the limited wishing technique, or even the higher-level grand wishing technique, how many people can enjoy its treatment? And now, Master Gret Nordmark has taken the first step in treating congenital heart disease. That's one small step for Nordmark Mage, one giant leap for the entire healing world. Wow, Gret, I didn't expect you to be so powerful in the Oak Grove Medical Clinic. Pastor Joanna, Pastor Donald, and Pastor Matthew walked up and down, sizing up Gret. Although I knew that little Avril's disease was difficult to cure and the method to cure her was very powerful, I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Gret was a little troubled. The research content of the Ordinary Magicians Monthly magazine is not high-end, but for middle and low-level spellcasters, it is more accessible to the people, and its dissemination power is not inferior. From this we can imagine how many family members of patients have placed their hopes on him. But they went too far. There are many types of congenital heart disease and the treatment methods are complex, which often require the cooperation of a large number of departments such as cardiovascular medicine and cardiothoracic surgery. No extracorporeal circulation, no ECMO, no pacemaker, no drugs. There are many diseases that he cannot cure. There was a rumble of traffic outside the door. The sound of wheels, which was much lighter than the previous few months, stopped at the entrance of the hospital. It was the rubber wheels that had just been made by the alchemy workshop. As far as Gret knows, this kind of wheel has not even been launched on the market. The complex family crest on the wall of the carriage is golden and includes patterns of daffodils and roses. Judging from Gretel's extremely poor knowledge of heraldry, the owner of this carriage is probably a descendant or relative of the royal family. The car door opened, and a neatly dressed knight with a sword hanging from his waist jumped out of the car neatly. Turning around, he picked up a little boy and led him into the hospital gate. "Is Master Nordmark here?" Gretel stepped forward. "No need to ask, just glance over and see that the boy is pale, thin, and seems to have some deficiencies. It seems that someone came to visit him after reading his thesis. This is Chris Bain, the eldest son of Viscount Aylwin." The knight turned around politely and introduced. "We came here after reading your paper. I would like to ask, can Chris's disease be cured? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right?" Author, Giolan 2020. Chapter 600. Children again. Another child who appears to have a congenital disease. I am not a pediatrician, nor a pediatric surgery department, nor a pediatric cardiovascular department. I am an emergency physician, and I am not an emergency pediatrician. But Greet can't say I don't want to see it or I can't see it when a patient seeks medical treatment in many ways but gets nothing, and you are his only hope. As a doctor, you have to bite the bullet and take the lead. Viscount Aylwin, whose territory is northwest of Nevis. This family is known for its bravery, and a simplified version of the family's Golden Lion swordsmanship is widely spread in the military. The above information comes from the gossip that was poured into Greet's ears at an unknown banquet. However, the eldest son of the current Viscount Aylwin, or in other words, the next generation of the family head, is quite weak. When he reached the age where he could practice martial arts, other children could run and jump, but he would suffer from shortness of breath and heart palpitations if he moved too much. If I get a little more tired, I'll fall down and show you. If this continues, how can I become a knight and inherit the family fortune? Although Gretel didn't know why the nobles in this world had to become knights in order to feel that they could inherit the family's glory. However, this did not prevent him from observing the patient while listening to the chattering of the accompanying knight. The little boy sat quietly in front of him, with his hands folded in his lap. The face is pale, there is no blush on the cheekbones, and no bruises on the lips or nails. It seems that even if there is a congenital disease, it should not be very serious. Gretel felt a little relieved. He took out a grass seed, slightly revealed the power of nature, turned it into a stethoscope, and smiled at the boy. "Come on, take off your coat and let me hear your heartbeat." "Never tetralogy of Follot, never." The boy obediently began to take off his coat. The small knight's uniform was made of velvet and each brass button was fastened tightly. It was quite troublesome for him to take it off. His movements were slow, but he didn't stop or let others help him. Gretel looked on with a smile. After the boy finished taking off his coat, leaving only a soft white silk underwear, he picked up the chest piece of the stethoscope and tried to press it up, but was stopped by the knight. "What's this?" "Stethoscope. Can hear heartbeat and breathing." Gretel handed it to him generously. The knight studied it carefully for a while, then handed it back to Gretel and asked him to auscultate. The first heart sound is increased, the second heart sound of the pulmonary artery is enhanced. The second heart sound, fixed split, come on, take a breath, exhale, inhale well, it's not affected by breathing, it's still split. Second intercostal space at the left edge of the sternum, grade 2 to 3 ejection systolic murmur, the diastolic phase is okay. Breath sounds are normal. The knight moved around anxiously around Greet, straining his ears to listen to his mumblings, but couldn't hear a single word clearly. Even if he could hear it clearly, he didn't know what it meant. After a long while, watching Greet put down the stethoscope and lie down on the table to write notes, he immediately asked impatiently, "Can it be cured?" "We need to further improve the inspection." Greet glanced at him, squatted down, and looked at the boy's level. "How about we sit outside for a while? Let me use this thing and take a look at your chest dash." As he spoke, he took out the endless ink pen and flashed it in front of the boy. The golden, diamond-encrusted quill made the boy's eyes light up. He reached out to touch it, but quickly retracted it. Greet smiled at him. "This is my new Magician Award prize. Just sit down and don't move. I'll touch it for you after I finish checking it, okay?" The boy nodded vigorously. Greet smiled slightly, raised the endless ink pen behind the boy with his mage's hand, and activated X-ray magic. "Well, the shape of the heart is enlarged, mainly the right atrium and right ventricle, the pulmonary artery segment is prominent, the pulmonary vessel shadow is increased, and hylarchoria sign can be seen. Based on auscultation and plain X-rays, it looks more like an atrial septal defect. Of course, further differential diagnosis is needed. If it is just an atrial septal defect, it is not difficult to treat and can be treated with interventional surgery." Gretel exhaled slightly, his face softened, he recalled the endless ink pen and put it into the boy's hand. After coaxing him to lie down quietly, he finished the ultrasound examination and turned to the knight seriously. It can be cured. How to cure it? Do you want to use that vine to insert it into the heart? What kind of disease does Master Chris have? How can you be sure? The knight opened his mouth with a series of questions. Gretel explained it to him carefully and planned to start treatment after he signed and approved it. Unexpectedly, after waiting for a long time, he said, "Master Mage, could you please write an explanation and I can take it back to the head of the family? It's too dangerous to insert vines into the heart or something like that. I don't dare to make the decision without the permission of the head of the family." Okay, that makes some sense. Although it is a bit of a headache for parents not to send their children to see a doctor in person, they cannot argue with the nobles about this. In my previous life, it's not like I haven't seen secretaries or neighbors sending people over, but their families were still thousands of miles away. Gretel was good-natured and copied the medical records for him. The knight flipped through the pages from beginning to end, and then from end to end, making sure that every diagnosis was based on probing, and immediately asked the next question. "How can you prove the things you said you saw? We can't see them." "That's a really good question." Gretel inhaled and exhaled, and just when he was about to answer, the boy already answered loudly. "But Uncle Hart, we are not magicians, we can't see in the first place." It feels so good to have a sensible child. Greet smiled at him and felt that his blood pressure had dropped by 10 millimeters of mercury, leisurely returning to the most comfortable range. He turned to the knight and said calmly, "Things seen in the meditation picture can be revealed and brought back to your family, master. Detection magic and ultrasonic detection, two inspection methods, each with a chip, can be stimulated with magical power." Each John contributed 50 points. "What? Buy it from the alchemy workshop and only need 10 contribution points. Please, does it cost nothing to check or does it cost nothing to burn?" The golden treasure box used for burning is a legendary design, handmade by a level 16 great magician. He hasn't even calculated the depreciation fee yet. Are hospital drugs sold with zero margin? What it is? Besides, what I sell is not medicine, what I sell is movies. 100 contribution points. The current market exchange price is 400 gold coins, is nothing to the Viscounty. Including the examination fee, the knight readily paid 500 gold coins and returned with his young master, medical records, and films. Within 2 days, I left and came back. Can't read. Nonsense, X-rays and B ultrasound images. People who haven't received any training will be confused if they can understand them. Gretel had no choice but to write an additional note, explaining to them again, what a healthy heart looks like, what part of Master Chris's heart is missing, and what consequences it will have. The knight took this explanation and ran away. Within 2 days, it was no longer the knight who came flying back, but Viscount Aylwin himself. He sat carefully in front of Gretel, rubbed his hands, and kept explaining. "Mr. Master, I'm very sorry, but Chris is my eldest son, and we are really worried about him. We have also seen your spell image, but we still can't understand it." He carefully observed Gretel's face and hesitated, ready to withdraw immediately when Gretel got angry. Can you please prove again that the child is missing a piece here, so that the heart blood is shunted to the side?" This. Greet was at a loss. "You can't understand the ultrasound, and I can't lend you the spirit of the contract. Could it be? Do you want me to have a cardiac angiogram? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. I have a strange plan for cardiac angiography, and I am considering whether it is feasible. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right?" Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 601. The patient's family members asked for more proof methods, but Greet was not angry. The patient's or patient's family's right to know is their right. Otherwise, if you say my child has a ventricular septal defect, does he have a ventricular septal defect? You said he had cervical erosion, but he still had cervical erosion. How many hospitals and unscrupulous doctors deceive patients like this? Moreover, ensuring patients' informed rights can also improve compliance and thus treatment effectiveness. Not to mention major surgery, even if a nurse gives an injection, she must first explain to the patient what she is doing. In his previous life, whenever he wasn't extremely busy, he would still hold films and test sheets, draw schematic diagrams of surgeries, and explain them carefully to patients. If you can't explain it clearly, that's the doctor's problem, not the patient's. However, cardiovascular angiography, how to do this thing? The principle of cardiovascular angiography is actually very simple. It is nothing more than injecting contrast agent into the blood vessels, letting it flow with the blood, and then turning on X-rays. The contrast agent is developed under X-rays, and at the same time, the process of developing the heart and blood vessel cavities is photographed using rapid photography, television photography, or tape recording. However, for Gretel in this world, the difficulty is extremely high. Nothing else, no developer. Developers used for cardiovascular imaging in previous lives, such as diatrizoate meglumen, such as Uvitex, Iohexol, Onipex. Once the doctor writes a prescription, you can pick it up from the pharmacy, so you don't have to worry at all. But now, where can I find it? Hand rub? Just kidding. For example, consider non-ionic contrast agents used in children, such as Iohexol. Its chemical name is 5-acetyl, 2,3-dihydroxypropyl, amino N-bis, 2,3-dihydroxypropyl, minus 2,4,6-triiodo-1,3-phthalimide. If it was silver nitrate, silver ammonia solution, or iodine, Greed would just rub it with his hands and take a look. For such a complex compound, he only had one idea. Probably after becoming a legend and living another 300 to 500 years, the technology in this world will be able to produce this thing, right? So Gretel had no choice but to find another way. Since he cannot open the chest, let the patient's family see the heart defect under direct vision. You cannot terminate the contract with the snake and let the patient's family see the heart condition with the snake's eyes. Explain to them electrocardiograms, X-rays and echocardiograms, but they don't understand. Then, use vines or other methods to send a secret eye into the heart so that people can see what is going on in the heart. Or, are there any other ways? Gretel thought hard for a long time, and finally raised his brows and looked at Viscount Aylwin sitting opposite. With this change of expression, he clearly heard Viscount Aylwin let out a long breath of relief. Alas, how pitiful the hearts of parents in the world are. Although I was really afraid of him, afraid that he would fall out and not treat me, I still had to ask. Greet tried his best to smile and make his face more friendly. He slowed down his speech and said softly, "We don't have magic that shows the direction of blood flow in the heart yet. In this way, I think Mr. Ling's condition is okay. If you are willing to wait, I can try my best to study it, but any conditions are acceptable. If you want money or people, just ask." Viscount Aylwin nodded repeatedly. The big and generous hand patted the chest hard, making a dull sound. This 30-year-old man has a straight back and a military bearing. He looks like a knight. However, there are strands of gray hair on the temples. It's not easy to ask for help, and no one here can help you. Money is really needed. After all, a new research needs research funds no matter what. Gretel smiled slightly and spoke softly. Of course, the purpose is to try not to make the opponent jump up and run away. However, since this magic was developed solely for your needs, I'm afraid you will have to bear the research funding. This Viscount Aylwin's expression froze. Master Nordmark's request is absolutely reasonable in terms of reason. After all, it was his own request to show the direction of blood flow in the heart. The magician was willing to research the spell for him, which was a huge favor. What magician doesn't have dozens or 20 projects in hand? If you say you want to research, they will jump in the queue for you. But paying for research? Just kidding, that's the magician's research. If it goes well, burning 10 or 20,000 gold coins is nothing at all. But if it doesn't go well? If it doesn't go well, it will be a bottomless pit. If he fills his entire viscounty, he doesn't know if it can be filled completely. Greet also noticed his hesitation. He coughed lightly. Don't worry, I will try to reduce the research costs as much as possible. In this way, I will not charge the cost of casting spells, and you only need to bear the cost of high-value consumables, okay? If you are worried, you can also send personnel to supervise the use of consumables. At this point, Viscount Aylwin could no longer shirk. He laughed and stood up. What are you saying, Mr. Master? You specialize in researching spells for us. If I don't trust you anymore, what will happen to me? No need for supervision. I will pay 1,000, no, 2,000 gold coins for the first research fund. It's nice to hang out with rich people. 2,000 gold coins, I wonder how much cost can be saved to cover the treatment expenses of the poor. Greet smiled brightly. He retreated to the back stairs, rolled up his sleeves, and began trying an angiogram. Well, the first option is to use the secret eye to try to enter the heart. Take out the magic equipment, summon the arcane eye, and adjust the size. The diameter shrinks from 1 inch, to 1 centimeter, to 5 millimeters, to 3 millimeter. Can't shrink anymore. He has reached the limit, and if he wants to shrink again, he has to wait until he reaches level 7, learns the magic of the mystical eye, and successfully dismantles it. And the diameter of 3 millimeter. Gretel came out and walked around, looked at the rabbit in the cage, and shook his head. This will definitely not pass through the rabbit's radial vein, which will burst in an instant. There seems to be no way through the child's radial vein or radial artery. The first plan failed. Greet kept up his efforts and tried the second option. Infuse the rabbit with magical energy to manifest. Medical common sense, if you can use non-invasive examination methods, do not use invasive examination methods. You can take medicine without injections, you can give intramuscular injections without intravenous injections. Every time a barrier is jumped, the risk increases exponentially. He immobilized the rabbit with the magic of anesthesia, then condensed a ball of healing energy and sent it into the rabbit's radial vein. In the meditation vision of detect magic, the energy entered the rabbit's body and immediately spread out, spreading outward along the muscles and bones. In the meditation field of vision, a small firework seemed to light up. As for running along the blood vessels and taking out images of the blood vessels, sorry, that doesn't exist. Well, it seems, that the only way to inject magic potions is. Okay, here comes the third option. Greet took a deep breath and solemnly wrote down in the experiment record. Inject magic potion into the blood vessels of experimental animals, and then use detection magic to observe its flow route. The selection of magic potion must be reliable and cheap while ensuring safety. There are many types of potions in the wizarding world. Take standard potions as an example. The cheapest first-level potions, such as jumping potion and spider walking potion, are available in the trading hall of the White Tower all year round, and the price is stable at 50 gold coins. Slightly more advanced potions, such as insight potions, swimming potions, and stealth potions, as long as they are not needed suddenly or in large quantities, the price is stable at 150 gold coins. Adventurers buy them all year round, and the flow never stops. But Gretel didn't think about this at all. Most of the above potions are drank, and a small part are applied. If there is any problem, the gastrointestinal barrier is blocked. If it is really injected into the muscle blood vessels, the safety is very worrying. So, bring me a bottle of Cure Minor Injuries potion. A bottle of Cure Minor Injuries potion is also 50 gold coins, which is an average price. What? Treat minor injuries. What kind of medicine is needed for minor injuries? I can lick a 3 to 4 centimeter wound by myself without resorting to healing techniques. Adventurers who work hard outside in wind or rain are really not that valuable. Gretel took matters into his own hands, lined up a row of syringes, and sucked the potion into the syringes. Treat minor injuries potions are sold in standard bottles, 1.5 inches high and about the thickness of a thumb. Potion content: 10 ml. Take 1 ml and inject it into a rabbit leg muscle. Detect magic images can be seen, but they are very blurry. Pipette another 1 ml and inject into another rabbit. After 5 groups, if there is no abnormality, draw another 2.5 ml and inject it into the leg muscle of the 6th rabbit. Okay, the 1 ml version makes 5 pieces, and the 2.5 ml version makes 6 pieces. After finishing the procedure and observing for 1 hour, 11 rabbits found no abnormalities, and the increase in invasive blood pressure was within the normal range. The first pass of the safety test was passed, but the validity test is temporarily doubtful. 100 gold coins, wings and soaring. Greet compared the weight of the rabbit and the little boy, and felt that 2.5 ml should be about the same. Anyway, the contrast agent used in pediatric cardiovascular angiography is only a few dozen milliliter. He geared up and started to take the next step. Take 1 ml of Treat Minor Injuries potion and inject it into the lower end of the rabbit's femoral artery. Detect magic fell, and the image of magic energy lit up slightly along the blood vessels. Before it had flowed halfway through the anterior tibial artery, it was already so faint that it could no longer be seen. It's okay, as long as you can see it. Greet kept up his efforts and did 5 consecutive groups of the 1 ml version, and then 6 consecutive groups of the 2.5 ml version. The conclusion is that the safety is acceptable, but the imaging effect is not very good. The magic energy content is too small. 2.5 ml of healing potion cannot flow through the anterior tibial artery and cannot be seen. For the second 100 gold coins, you can soar with wings. So should we increase the pushing pressure or use a better healing potion? Treat Moderate Injuries potion, 300 gold coins per bottle. For the sake of money, Greet decided to check the safety of cardiovascular imaging first. He took the 5th bottle of Cure Minor Injuries potion and used the vines to go up the blood vessels and reach the rabbit's heart. 1, 2, 3, potion injection, start. The experiment has just begun, and the 250 gold coins have been burned away. Magic research is so expensive. Fortunately, there is a sponsor to pay the bill, otherwise. My body finally feels better. I am sure the fever has passed, I just have a slight cough. Let's continue with more updates now. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of